Good morning, everyone. Welcome to Philadelphia City Council's Committee on Streets and Services. I now note that the hour has come. Mr. Pullen, would you please call the roll?
Councilmember Ahmad.
Present.
Councilmember Bass. Councilmember Brooks.
Present.
Councilmember Harity.
Present.
Vice Chair Squilla. Chair Young.
Present. I note for the record that a quorum of this committee is present and the hearing is called to order. This is a public hearing of the Committee on Streets and Services considering testimony on bill numbers 250066, 250099, 250100, 250147, and 250148. I would like to note that bill number 250099 is being held at the request of the sponsor. The chair also notes the presence of Councilmember Bass. Before we begin, do any of my colleagues have any opening remarks? Seeing none, thank you. Mr. Pullen, would you please read the titles of the first bill?
Bill number 250066, titled an ordinance amending Chapter 11-200 of the Philadelphia Code, entitled Openings and Excavations in the Streets, to impose additional penalties on violators of underground permitting requirements under certain terms and conditions.
Thank you. Mr. Pullen, please call the first witness to testify on this bill.
The first witness to testify is Richard Montanez, Deputy Commissioner of Transportation for the Department of Streets.
Good morning, Chairman Young and members of the Streets and Services Committee. My name is Richard Montanez, and I am the Deputy Commissioner of Transportation for the Department of Streets. I'm here to testify on Bill number 250066, introduced by Councilmember Hagerty. This bill amends Chapter 11-200 of the Pennsylvania Code, entitled Openings and Excavations in the Street, to impose additional penalties on violators of underground permitting requirements. Under this bill, the department issuing the permit will be authorized to add additional penalties not exceeding $450 per day to individual contractors who violate this code section by digging up the street and not completing repairs. This bill will also prevent the department from issuing permits until all fines and penalties have been paid. This bill will not apply to large parties such as PECO, Verizon, and Comcast. This concludes my testimony, and I'm pleased to answer any questions you have.
Thank you, Mr. Montanez. So in your testimony, you said the bill won't apply to the utility companies. Well, the PECO, Verizon, and Comcast, would it also apply to PGW or like the water department or things like that?
That would be correct. Any large utility company would not apply to.
It would not
so
apply
PGW, AT&T, Crown Castle, any company controlled under the Pennsylvania Utility Commission.
Okay. Thank you. Chair recognizes Councilmember Harity.
Actually pull their own permits is PGW. Comcast, it's mostly done by their subcontractors, which are included in the bill. The subcontractors are included in the bill. The utility companies themselves were kept out. The only one that actually pulls their own permits are PGW on occasion. It's gas, and they're very technical when it comes to that. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilmember. Are there any other questions of this witness? Seeing none, thank you so much for your testimony, Mr. Montanez. Is there anyone else in the chamber who would like to testify on bill number 250066? Seeing none, thank you. Mr. Pullen, would you please read the title of the next bill?
Bill number 250100, titled an ordinance authorizing encroachments in the nature of a sidewalk cafe in the vicinity of 177 Markle Street, Philadelphia, Pennsylvania 19127, under certain terms and conditions.
Thank you, Mr. Pullen. Would you please call the next witness to testify on this bill?
The next witnesses to testify are Noel Marconi, Legislative Affairs Director for the Department of Streets, and Sarah Chu, Development Director for the City Planning Commission.
Good morning, Ms. Marconi. Please state your name for the record and begin with your testimony.
Good morning, Chairperson Young and members of the Streets and Services Committee. My name is Noel Marconi, and I'm the Director of Legislative Affairs for the Department of Streets. I'm here today to offer testimony on Bill Number 250100, introduced by Councilmember Jones. This bill authorizes Danielle Dupuy and Isaac Dupuy, the owners, to install, own, and maintain encroachments in the nature of a sidewalk cafe at the Brass Tap located at 177 Markle Street. A total of 6 tables and 24 seats will be located adjacent to the building line of 177 Markle Street. The Department of Streets is not opposed to this proposed sidewalk cafe, as it will maintain 6 feet 0 inches of unobstructed footway. This concludes my testimony. Please answer any questions you may have.
Thank you, Ms. Marconi. Ms. Chu, please proceed with your testimony.
Good morning, Chairmember Young and members of the Streets Services Committee. I'm Sarah Chu, City Planner Manager with the Philadelphia City Planning Commission. I'm here to testify on Bill Number 250100, introduced by Councilmember Jones on February 13th, 2025. This bill will allow a sidewalk cafe and planters to be located at 177 Markle Street. A minimum of 6 feet of clear sidewalk space is to remain after installation, meeting the city's complete street policy. The Planning Commission, at its meeting on February 20th, 2025, recommended Bill Number 250100 for approval. I'll be happy to answer any questions.
Thank you so much for your testimony, Ms. Chu. Are there any questions of these witnesses on this bill at this time? Seeing none, thank you for your testimony. Mr. Pullen, would you please, is there anyone else in the chambers wishing to testify on Bill Number 250100? Seeing none, Mr. Pullen, would you please read the title of the next bill?
Bill Number 250147, titled An Ordinance Authorizing Philippian Baptist Church or a subsequent owner to install, own, and maintain an encroachment at 5801 North Broad Street, Philadelphia, Pennsylvania 19141, under certain terms and conditions.
Thank you, Mr. Pullen. Would you please call the next witnesses to testify?
The next witnesses to testify are Noel Marconi, Legislative Affairs Director for the Department of Streets, and Sarah Chu, Development Director for the City Planning Commission.
Thank you, Ms. Marconi. Ms. Chu, please proceed your testimony.
Good morning, Chairperson Young and members of the Streets and Services Committee. My name is Noel Marconi, and I'm the Director of Legislative Affairs for the Department of Streets. I'm here today to offer testimony on Bill Number 250147, introduced by Councilmember Phillips. This bill authorizes Philippian Baptist Church or a subsequent owner to install, own, and maintain an encroachment at 5801 North Broad Street in the nature of a prefabricated modular building ramp. A prefabricated modular building access ramp will be located adjacent to the building line of 5801 North Broad Street. The Department of Streets is not opposed to this proposed access ramp, as it will maintain a minimum of 11 feet 6 inches of clear unobstructed footway. This concludes my testimony. I'm pleased to answer any questions you may have.
Thank you, Ms. Chu. Again.
Good morning, Chairmember Young and members of the Committee on Streets and Services. I'm Sarah Chu, City Planner Manager with the Philadelphia City Planning Commission. I'm here to testify on Bill Number 250147, introduced by Councilmember Phillips on February 27, 2025. This bill will allow a prefabricated building access ramp to be constructed at the front entrance of 5801 North Broad Street property. The ramp will encroach approximately 13 feet 6 inches onto the footway of Broad Street. 11 feet and 6 inches of clear sidewalk space will remain after installation, meeting the city's complete streets policy. The Planning Commission will consider this bill at its next meeting on March 20th, 2025, with a staff recommendation for approval. I will be happy to answer any questions you may have.
Thank you, Ms. Chu. Just one quick question. The amendment is an amendment to this. It adds a section stating that it's not effective until there's a $200 cost. Is that something that is associated with all encroachments?
Correct.
Okay, thank you. Are there any other questions of these witnesses on this bill? Thank you. Is there anyone else in the chambers wishing to testify on bill number 250147? Seeing none, thank you for your testimony. Mr. Pullen, would you please read the title of the next bill?
Bill number 250148, titled an ordinance amending Chapter 12-3400 of the Philadelphia Code, entitled Use of an Automated Speed Enforcement System to Improve Safety by providing for the use, administration, and enforcement of automated speed cameras on routes located within specific school zones under certain terms and conditions.
Thank you, Mr. Pullen. Would you please call the next witnesses to testify?
The first witness to testify is Cole Appleman, Policy Analyst for the Office of Transportation and Infrastructure Systems.
Morning, everybody. How we doing?
Good morning. Cole, please state your name for the record and begin with your testimony.
Yeah, Cole Appleman, Transportation Policy Analyst with the Office of Transportation and Infrastructure Systems. Well, good morning, everyone. Chairperson Young and the members of the Streets and Services Committee. My name is Cole Appleman. I'm a policy analyst with the Office of Transportation and Infrastructure Systems. You probably know us better as Otis. I'm here today to offer testimony on bill number 250148, sponsored by Council Member Thomas. In addition to CM Thomas, we would like to thank you, Chairperson Young, and the other members of the Streets and Services Committee here today for being so cooperative and supportive of the ACE program over the course of the last year. This bill, entitled The Use of Automated Speed Enforcement to Improve Safety, would authorize automated speed enforcement for up to 7 total school zones, with up to 5 allowed to be active at once. This pilot will last for 5 years before reevaluation as stipulated by PennDOT. The 7 schools that have been selected are Visitation BVM, John B. Stetson Middle School, KIPP North Philadelphia Academy, Widener Memorial School, Northeast High School, High School of the Future, and William L. Sayre High School. Each of these schools were selected after careful and thorough citywide analysis of crash trends and speed data. The installation of speed cameras is proven to reduce speeding and reckless driving, and this pilot will allow us to apply this safety tool to protect Philadelphia's students as they travel to and from school. We know these systems are effective. 4 years ago, the city deployed speed cameras on Roosevelt Boulevard, at the time, the most dangerous road in the city and one of the most dangerous in the state. In the years since, we've seen remarkable progress on the boulevard, including a 95% reduction in speeding violations, 50% reduction in pedestrian-involved crashes, and a 21% reduction in all fatal and serious injury crashes. ACE has now been authorized for expansion on State Route 611, better known as Broad Street and Old York Road, and Route 13, Frankford, Hunting Park, Baltimore Ave, and a couple of other streets in between. There are 3 additional corridors that are currently under assessment, but that is a slightly separate project. The installation of the new system will be accompanied by educational messaging and a 60-day driver warning period, ensuring that the pilot program is fair and transparent. Otis has engaged with the leadership of the selected schools to be sure the process of installing and operating these systems is smooth and the stakeholders are aware of the change. We look forward to continuing our work with the Philadelphia Parking Authority as program administrators, the Pennsylvania Department of Transportation, and the School District of Philadelphia on effective program communication to share the message that this program can change behavior to protect Philadelphia's students. In summary, this legislation provides the city with another essential tool to keep our students safe when traveling to and from school. Thank you very much for the opportunity to testify before you. I'm happy to answer any questions at this time.
Thank you so much for your testimony. I do have a couple questions. One, what type of engagement with communities was done since this bill was introduced to today when we're having a hearing on it?
You mean strictly the schools?
No, not the schools, but communities who will be affected. The schools aren't going to have to pay those tickets, right? It's the community members that are going to have to pay those tickets. So what type of engagement with the residents around these communities, around these schools have been done since the introduction of this bill till today?
So as far as ACE program goes, we have engaged with RCOs as well as reached out to community organizations to have meetings. I, for one, was on a meeting with Tioga. I believe it was I can't recall the exact name of the RCO at this moment, but we've had several meetings engaging directly with the folks out there. We do have a communications campaign, including bus tail ads, radio ad, and some other things that are along those lines that we have used to reach out to folks in regards to Broad Street. We will do the exact same program, the exact same communications program for Route 13, any of the other subsequent routes, and we are also in direct contact with the schools in regards to this exact program here today.
Okay, so for what I'm hearing, there has been no engagement with the community residents around this legislation, not the broader legislation of, things that you've done around Broad Street and the routes, but I'm talking about this. How many schools are in this, 5?
7 have been named,
Seven
I believe,
schools?
yeah.
Right, and I'm just asking because one is in my district, right? KIPP, North Philadelphia Academy, is in my district, and I know that those RCOs haven't been contacted about this particular legislation to at least, let the community know that this is something that their city council is thinking about doing, right? Or that the city is thinking about doing, right? And so I do think we need to get feedback, right, from the community members who are the ones who are going to be paying these fines ultimately, because we're introducing something to them that has never been in their community, right? So they're used to certain commutes, and yes, the 60-day grace period is great. We should do that, but they should know that this is coming. And I don't think that, and particularly in my community in North Philadelphia, that they know that this is coming around, and I don't know, I can't speak about the other schools, but I'm sure if we weren't notified in certain areas, and I'm sure that others weren't notified as well. Having direct communication with schools is great, but not everyone has a kid who goes to those schools in that neighborhood, and so I think we really need to engage the people who live around this vicinity who will be getting these tickets for ultimately speeding. Now, I'm not saying they're not well-deserved tickets, but they still should at least have the ability to know what's coming to their community.
Understood, and we will engage. We have not begun that process yet specifically around this legislation, but that is standard operating procedure for our department to have thorough community engagement. We'll happily keep you up to date when we start that.
Yeah, I would just ask that the engagement starts prior to passage of legislation versus after it's passed, right? Because after it's passed, it's hard. It's difficult to make changes to certain things. Not saying that we want to take schools out of here. These are very warranted locations. Particularly, I know around the KIPP, North Philadelphia. And I know the School of the Future, I drive past there almost daily. I take my son to school out there, right? So I understand, what the premises behind it, but I just think that, I'm sure the folks around Northeast High School will want to be engaged about what's happening in the community on Cottman Avenue, right? That's a street that is well-traveled by many people in this city, all right? So we want to make sure that at least that those communities have the opportunity to express their position on that, because there's no one from these communities who is here in this chamber today to testify on this legislation, again, because I don't think they know about it. So I think we need to do a better job at community engagement before and not after. So the chair recognizes Councilmember Brooks.
Thank you so much, Chairman. My question is kind of along the same line. So what steps have been taken to ensure that the cameras and the ticketing process does not have inequitable outcomes? Have we talked about that around the same communities that don't know that this is happening?
Yeah, when we first put out the 611 legislation, we did do a equity study, of which is on our website, visionzerophl.com, and Councilwoman, I'll happily follow up with anyone from your office to make sure those resources get to you. Specifically with this legislation, we focus heavily on the crash data. This is a pilot. This is something that we want to prove works empirically, so we went with the schools that were the highest risk for both speed and crashes.
And my other question is, how are the crossing guards using this data from the speeding cameras to improve safety in these areas?
That's an excellent question. I'm not entirely sure at this moment in time, but I can get back to you with that information.
And my one specific, where, for Widener Memorial, is this on, where?
Alany.
It's on Alany?
Yeah.
Okay. So to that point, have those neighbors been informed? Because that's a very highly traveled area that's gonna have a huge impact. And not that I don't support it, I'm just concerned of the phone calls that we will get when neighbors didn't know that they were a part of this pilot program that could cost them money with a speed camera, whether you're 1 or 2, right, for 2 miles over the thing if you didn't know to slow down. People should slow down, but we all should give people fair warnings, and I don't see that. I think it impacts us in a different way when we have to put out fires when, we could have prevented it just for people having the information to know that this is happening. That's all I have.
Understood.
What can you describe to us the analysis done to say that speed cameras need to be used at these locations versus other traffic calming measures?
So we do have a full report, and again, I don't want to get out of my depth here in front of the committee. I can make sure to get that full report sent to your office as well, as far as how we selected these locations, the methodology that went into it, and as well as other measures.
I mean, I think that's helpful for me as a legislator, right? You're asking us to support something without having the data in front of us. And I understand that, today's the hearing date, but typically we see that as like an exhibit or something like that that's associated with the testimony, that would have been helpful, right? And again, I'm just trying to figure out, why. I mean, this body has passed legislation to make it easier to install, traffic calming measures around schools like speed bumps and, rubble strips, all those types of things that are proven to work to slow traffic down. And again, it's just why cameras, right? Why and around schools when we already have the tools to slow traffic down around these schools? Why not use those speed bumps? I mean, I think speed bumps on Albany Avenue would be great for everybody, right? And it seems like for me, are we really trying to slow traffic down, or is it just another way to get money, right? And I think that's what our constituents are going to ask us. Right? Is it to slow traffic, or is this a money grab by the city? We know what the answer is, right? But to them, right, it's a whole different world when they're the ones who are getting hit with these $100 fines consistently. So I really think that we really need to do a little bit more engagement to see what the most effective method of achieving our goal of traffic calming, right? What's the most effective method? Are speed cameras the most effective method of getting a car to slow down around the school zone, right? Because the purpose of it is to make sure that our kids are safe as they're going to and from school. But if I don't know what cameras exist there, I'm going to still keep driving the way I drive. But I can see speed bumps. Speed bumps are something that's visual, that's going to naturally, if I don't want to mess my car up, slow down at least. So I think we really need to consider the engagement efforts outside of just talking to the school, because, they're not the ones that are going to be impacted by this. Again, it's going to be that surrounding community that's going to feel the brunt of this type of legislation. And again, it's to make everyone safer, but is this the best method to achieve the goal of traffic safety? And that's what I would like to take a look at that report to see what that entails.
I actually do have a copy of it here now if you would like to take a look.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Are there any other questions for this witness on this bill? Is there anyone else who would like to testify on bill number 250148? Seeing none, thank you for your testimony.
Thank you.
Mr. Pullen, would you please call the next witness to testify on this bill? Anyone?
The next witnesses to testify are Craig Johnson, Chief of School Safety for the School District of Philadelphia, and Latanya Hill of the School Crossing Guards Union. All right, they might not be available.
I am going to note that Mr. Craig Johnson did submit written testimony for the record, but they are not. He's not here to testify.
Call the next one.
Mr. Pullen, would you please call any other witnesses wishing to testify on this bill?
The next witness to testify is Peter Kim, volunteer with Fifth Square.
Good morning, Mr. Kim. Please state your name for the record and begin with your testimony.
Good morning, Chair Young and members of City Council. My name is Peter Kim. I'm speaking as a volunteer with Fifth Square and a proud parent of a 9th grader at Central High School. Fifth Square wholeheartedly supports Bill 250148. We are glad to see our City Council and Mayor's office acknowledge that traffic death rates are too high in Philadelphia and that we're working towards implementing real solutions toward Vision Zero. In 2024, Philadelphia experienced 125 deaths resulting from car crashes, and almost half of those lives lost were people walking. According to the city's 2023 Vision Zero report, on average, 5 children are hit by vehicles every week. This is unacceptable and needs to end. Speed cameras are proven to work. Researchers at the University of Pennsylvania found that speed cameras on Roosevelt Boulevard save nearly 1 life every month. A similar school zone speed camera program in New York City found that speeding has reduced by 94%, which has resulted in 14% fewer injuries and fatalities. The data is clear. These cameras will change driver behavior, prevent crashes, and will make our communities safer for everyone. Speaking personally, this bill will deliver me some comfort as my child gets to school by walking along Albany Avenue from the Broad Street line to Ogons Avenue, which is one of the corridors slated for a speed camera. I'm not sure how familiar you are with that area there, but there are actually 3 schools there, even though the area is named after the Widener Memorial School. So there's Widener Memorial. There's also Girls High right there and Central High. I know some of the council members not present, but on the broader council are alumni of some of those schools. And so my son has told me along his walk, he regularly sees motorists engaging in reckless behavior, aggressive driving, and we believe speed cameras are sorely needed here. I also urge this body to tell Harrisburg that we need the speed camera program to be permanent, expanded to include more sites, and for them to be active beyond school hours. Please pass this bill. Thank you for your time.
Thank you so much for your testimony. Chair recognizes the presence of Council President Johnson as well. Mr. Cole, would you mind coming, Mr. Appleton, excuse me, would you mind coming back? We do have one more question. In looking at the data, you mentioned, do you want to answer? Yeah. Chair recognizes Councilmember Brooks.
Based on the testimony of the prior witness, I was wondering why Alany was chosen instead of Ogons. I'm very familiar with the area. I drive that way every day. And the children leaving Widener Memorial are on buses. So for Widener Memorial to be the school selected is very strange to me when the children from Central and Girls High are the ones that are pedestrians walking in that particular area. And being familiar with the area, I drive that way quite often, that Ogons, there's a lot of high traffic on Ogons just as much as Alany. So I don't, how was that, why was Widener chosen? Because the opening for the kids to come out of Widener is a gated community that you're coming into Alany behind Girls High. On the other side, you're coming out by Central, but those children are on buses. Mm-hmm. Those children do not commute to school every day. The children that are most impacted are Girls High and Central, and I'm not really sure where or how this intersection was chosen, but you said Alany Avenue. That's where my bells rung in my head that I'm not really understanding the location and the proximity.
I'm going to, Chris, would you like to take this one?
Yeah, good morning. My name is Christopher Pahalski. I'm the Director of Policy and Strategic Initiatives for Otis. Those locations were chosen because they have the highest number of crashes. So we looked at, during the school hour, we looked at pedestrian crashes, speeding crashes, and killed and serious injury crashes. So that's why those locations were chosen, because they have the highest number of crashes.
So even if, so they have the highest number of crashes, but in the data, but anecdotally, we will see that if we're trying to protect the pedestrians, right? I think if that's the one of the goals, protect the students. Then have you all looked at other locations around where there is a high volume of traffic that could achieve similar goals as well?
Yeah, that's a great question, council member. So we actually looked at all the school zones in Philadelphia when we ranked them to choose this first 7 set that we'd like to enable for this technology. So, and actually it was, there was actually no list of school zones. So we had, the reason it took, from when the bill passed through the state till now is there was extensive data analysis that was done to go to all the schools, select all the roads around the schools, look at the definition of a school zone in the PennDOT regulation, and then add up all the crashes that were in it. I think there's probably other technologies. I don't think it's an either or. It's either traffic calming by speed cameras or traffic calming by all the other measures in our toolbox. So I don't think putting speed cameras at these locations will prohibit us in the future from employing other traffic calming measures. I also think these are only the first 7 in the list. This is a 5-year pilot. We're actually a year or more into the pilot by the time the bill passed through the state. So we're hoping that these will show an effectiveness to the state legislature to enable us to add more locations at any one time. Even though within this, even though we can only do 5 at any time, the idea is to, these are, the parking authority bought mobile cameras so they can be moved around. But what will be clear is that there'll be clear signage at each of those locations saying traffic enforcement while the lights are flashing. So we're going to make sure that the school flashers are in a state of good working order, and that the signage is clear so people know when the systems are activated, so there's no guesswork about, is this system on, am I going to get a ticket here?
PennDOT was insistent that we selected 7 schools that had the active flashers, not just a sign, and these cameras will only be active when the flashers are on.
Thank you. So can you just describe to us, for the record, the exact streets that these cameras are proposed to be on for these 7 schools?
Sure. Visitation BVM. The school zone is on East Lehigh Avenue between B Street and Kensington Avenue. John B. Stetson, the school zone is on East Allegheny Ave between A and B Street. KIPP North Philadelphia, 16th Street between Cumberland and Huntington. Widener Memorial on West Olney between Broad and 16th. Northeast High on Cotman between Algon and Glendale. High School of the Future on West Girard between 39th and 40th. William L. Sayer on Walnut between 58th and 59th. If you would like to me to submit the list, I'd be happy to turn that in as well.
Yes, that would be helpful. But for the school of the future, I mean, I'm just looking at where it sits at in my mind. Why Girard Avenue versus Parkside?
That's because that's where the crashes are. That's where there are more crashes, and that's also how we define the school zone. And this is something that I think when you do a pilot like this, you learn a lot. And this is something we've already learned, that unfortunately the definition of a school zone in the motor vehicle code and in the PennDOT regulations, it's each. If you've got, let's say, a typical block and you've got 4 roads around that block that the school is on, the way that the PennDOT regulations are written, those are actually 4 separate school zones. So we were not able to designate all the roads around a school, which I think would be a more holistic way. So this is something that, as this legislation goes back up to the state, and the state considers making this permanent and any changes that are made with the program, this is something that we'd like to do. We'd like to be able to protect all of the streets around a school, not just choose the highest crash street in front of a school.
I mean, I'm just thinking about that because from Girard Ave, I mean, you really, to get to Girard Avenue from School of the Future, you got to pretty much cross Parkside. It's a little street you got to cross and get over there. So and on these major streets where these schools are, when we go to these communities and they talk to us, it's really going to seem like it's just a money grab by the city, right? That's what you're going to say, because we are only putting these on these they're high volume streets they're well-traveled streets, and I'm sure it's based on the crash data, right? It's based on data. But our constituents don't look at data. They look at their pockets. That's their main concern, and I really want to stress the importance of communication before these are implemented. So I understand that you have a 60-day period of, warning period. I would suggest that we stretch that out a little longer if we are going to pass this, out of council relatively soon, in order to allow us, particularly the district council members, right, and even the at-large ones as well, like, we're going to be hearing this. Like, we're going to hear about this. I know the community up at 16th and Cumberland has not been engaged about this. I know because the ward leader will probably be here right now testifying on it, right?
Point of
Just
information.
because. Chair recognizes Councilmember Bass.
So I want to thank you for making that point, Mr. Chairman, because that's exactly the point I was going to make. And I want to really stress to the school district that this bill really should not have come from an at-large member. And so I don't want to be critical of my colleagues, but I do want to be absolutely clear that when it comes to making these kinds of decisions, district council members are on the line. We're on the line every single day. People expect us to know and have the answers. I did not know about these plan changes in my district, but yet I will be the one who will be held accountable for them. So I'm going to ask, Mr. Chairman, that we may consider holding the bill until we get further clarification, because I don't know that any of my colleagues were informed about any of these changes in their district, as I wasn't, as you weren't, as other district members weren't. It is totally unacceptable to have this come through a district council member without any sort of, through a at-large member without any sort of conversation with the members who are held responsible for these sorts of changes. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Council Member. Are there any other questions of these witnesses? Hearing none, thank you so much for your testimony. Mr. Pullen, would you please call any other witnesses to testify on this legislation?
There are no more witnesses to testify.
Thank you. Hearing none, is there anyone else in this chamber looking to testify on bill number 250148? Seeing none, thank you. The hearing will now transition to our public comment session. Mr. Pullen, are there any speakers for public comment?
There are no speakers for public comment.
Thank you. I would like to thank all the witnesses for joining us today. We will end the public hearing and go into our public meeting. I note for the record that a quorum of the committee is present. Hold on for a second. Pardon me for. Thank you. The chair recognizes Council Member Brooks for an amendment, for a motion on the amendment to bill number 250147.
Thank you, Chairman. I offer an amendment to bill number 250147. A copy of the amendment has been circulated to all members of the committee. I move that the amendment to bill number 250147 be adopted.
Second. Thank you. It has been moved and properly seconded that the amendment to Bill number 250147 be adopted. All those in favor of the motion will signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, ayes have it. The motion carries. The amendment to Bill number 250147 has been adopted. The chair recognizes Councilmember Brooks for a motion to the amendment on Bill number 250066.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I offer an amendment to Bill number 25066. 250066. A copy of the amendment has been circulated to all members of the committee, and I move that amendment to Bill number 250066 be adopted.
Thank you. It has been moved and properly seconded that the amendment to Bill number 250066 be adopted. All those in favor of the motion will signify by saying aye. Those opposed, ayes have it. The motion carries, and the amendment to Bill number 250066 has been adopted. The chair recognizes, hold on, excuse me, before we do that, I am going to note for the record that Bill number 250148 will be held to the call of the chair. So the chair recognizes Councilmember Brooks for a motion on Bill numbers 250066 as amended, 250100, and 250147 as amended. Chair recognizes Councilmember Brooks.
Yeah, I'm following. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I move that bills number 250066 as amended, 250100 as amended, and 250147 as amended be reported from the committee with a favorable recommendation, and further move that the rules of council be suspended to prevent. Oh, I'm sorry. I can, okay. Mr. Chairman, I move that bills number 250066 as amended, 250100, and 250147 as amended be reported from this committee with a favorable recommendation, and further move that the rules of council be suspended to permit the first reading of this bill at the next session of council.
It has been moved and properly seconded that bill numbers 250066 as amended, 250100, and 250147 as amended be reported from this committee with a favorable recommendation, and further move that the rules of council be suspended to permit the first reading of this bill at the next session of council. All those in favor will signify the motion by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed? In the opinion of the chair, the ayes have it. The motion carries, and bills number 250066 as amended, 250100, and 250147 as amended will be reported from this committee with a favorable recommendation, with a further request that the rules of council be suspended to permit the first reading at the next session of council. To clarify again, bill number 250148 will be held in the committee to the call of the chair. The chair also recognizes the presence of Vice Chair Councilmember Mark Squilla. This concludes the business before the Committee on Streets and Services today. Thank you very much for your attendance.
Thank you. Sorry.